And I work at Raven Roofing in Regina. I'm the health and safety leader here. And I don't know which direction people are seeing. So if you would like to hop in next, maybe Andrew?
Hi, my name's Andrew Eilers, work for PCL Construction and co-chair with Barb this year.
Thanks. And just hop in, anyone.
Okay, my name is Rick Rieger. I'm Senior Safety Advisor with the SCSA here. And actually, Barb, it looks like we're still having a couple people coming in here. So
Okay.
it's a good thing. So I'll just allow them in as they come.
Sure.
And then maybe if you want to mention that recording thing once we do the introduction, here would be good.
I will.
Hey, and I'm Loy Levesque. I'm the Advisory Services Manager at the SCSA.
There, I think I got it now.
Yeah.
Ryan Giesbrecht, and I'm representative from the Regina Construction Association, also with Giesbrecht Cranes.
Okay.
And I'm Joanne Davis from the Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association advisor.
Okay. Thanks, Joanne. How about Steve? Or Brett or Ruan? Ruan, am I saying that correctly?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ruan. I work for Tech Valco out in North Battleford, Saskatchewan. I'm the Director of Human Resources and Health and Safety.
Fantastic. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Brett? That's fine.
There, how's that? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hi, I'm Brett with Tech Valco. I'm the safety manager here.
Good.
Yeah, I talked with Mike and he told me to come and join.
That's awesome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. And we have someone new, Kieran.
Hey.
Hi. Do you want to just give us a quick introduction of who you are and where you're from?
Sure. I am a fellow advisor with Rick and Joanne at the Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association.
Awesome. Great. Well, I think I will repeat again for anyone who didn't hear that we are going to record this session. So if you are not okay with that, then just pop off your screen and your mic and just listen in. And if you can mute yourself while the meeting is going on, unless you need to speak or want to speak, then that will help us to cut down on background noise. So muting is, for anyone that doesn't know, on your Zoom screen down in the bottom left-hand corner, where it should be on most. So if you could do that, that would be great. It looks like most people are muted. So we're going to just have a little bit of business, and then we have what I think is going to be a great speaker with us today. So I'm not going to take a full heap of time away from him and the information that he's going to be able to share with us. So you all would have received an emailed agenda that Rick and Vikira sent out. So it's a fairly standard agenda. If there's anything really pressing that you would like to add to it, speak now. Otherwise, we'll just carry on through it. At any time, we don't want to get hung up on formalities through this. So at any time, if there's an issue that pops up that you want to bring up to the group, please indicate that, put your hand up, or wait your turn, or say your piece. We just really want to encourage good discussion and conversation here. So the adoption of the agenda, I'll just, we're not going to do firsts and seconds on this. We're just going to proceed with that. We don't have minutes from the last time because, again, it was just a check-in during the very beginning of when things were shutting down due to COVID-19. So we did a Zoom check-in in April, I think it was, and did not do a lot of formality again. We just wanted to see that everyone was getting along all right and how they were managing and coping. So we don't have minutes to approve from that, so that's why you wouldn't have had those attached. So we have no particular business arising from those minutes. I'm going to move on to what I would consider to be my report. I'll submit this in some written form so that it can be attached as well if anybody cares for that in a written form. I want to say welcome to everybody and welcome back to people, and thank you for coming to new people who happen to be here. This is a good forum for us to just be able to talk about our industry, talk about issues that we're facing, talk about solutions. That's what it's all about for us here. As far as my experience and things that in my conversations with other people in the industry, it seems as if our industry is picking up, some segments more than others. On the commercial and industrial side of things, we're slowly starting to get back into a bit of a groove. More tenders are coming through, more jobs. We're personally at our business, we're able to hire some more people back. We're starting to look for some more people because we're seeing down the pipeline more jobs coming. So that's good. It's not like it was a year ago or 2 years ago, but we're starting to see a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm not sure if that's what other people's experience is or not, but that's what I've heard from a couple of other commercial contractors as well. Pandemic plans, I'm sure that everyone is revising those, has had lots of time to make sure that they've got current information, good information, well understood by your workforce, by your managers, by your leaders. That's what's critical, is that it's adopted by everyone from the top down. So we've done lots and lots and lots. We collectively have done lots of talking and thinking and writing and planning around that. And we'll continue to do that as our information changes and becomes more current. One of the nice offshoots from this, I don't know if I would attribute it exactly, but it's possible because we're a bit more mindful about the protocols that we follow and the things that we find important. And safety has taken a front seat now because of this pandemic, which is not a bad thing at all. It's what we all strive for. And our statistics, when I was just looking this month at our stats, are better than they were. Our safety stats are improved over this time last year and over this time 2 years ago. So whether that's because we had a diminished workforce and less hours on the job, or whether it's because we're more mindful of what we're doing, or whether it's some combination of all of that. I'm not sure, but it's good for us to see. It's good for me to see that. So I'd be interested to hear at some point if other people are experiencing a similar kind of thing. The last thing that I want to mention is that I would like to, and I haven't talked to you, Rick, about this really, but I'd like to have Rick and the administration team, by Kara or whoever, send out in some email format to our Regina people, if possible. And Loy, you could probably speak to this if it's not possible, because you're here with us today. My email address, my work email address, so that for meetings like this or for other events that have to do with the Regina safety, like the Regina RSC, I'm able to make some contact with people that I may not have contact from. So if my email goes out and I get replies indicating that I can reply back to them, so we make that connection. It doesn't have to go through the SCSA unless it has to go through the SCSA, if you get what I mean. I would like to have my own larger list of our membership without having to have the SCSA develop, which is not your job, develop the protocols and permissions for me to receive people's email addresses and use them for this communication. So I don't know if Rick or Loy or anyone needs to speak to that, but that's something that I would like to work on for the next month or two, so that we can use it not just for recruitment, but also just to stay connected, so that I can do a little bit of forward advance planning. And in 2 meetings from now, we're supposed to be having our elections again in January. So I'll be wanting to have some contact with people who might be interested in either this chair position or the vice chair position. And again, Andrea, I haven't talked with you about your plans, but these are yearly positions. So anyone in any year is welcome to throw their name into the hat, regardless whether I want to stay or Andrew does. So that's all. That's my, did you need to say anything about any of that, Loy or Rick?
Hey, Barb. Yeah, we can look into see what or if we can do something about that, because I'm kind of understanding from what you said that you just kind of want to be able to have more direct communication with people.
Right.
Yeah. So,
right.
Yeah, I'll have to look into it and see how we can approach that and what we can do for that. I don't have an answer today as to.
Okay. No, I don't expect to
do, but we can talk. We can talk after. Sure.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. So the next two items are an SCSA update that you can probably give us, Rick. And then maybe you could move right into the toolbox talk after that as well, because that'll be the item after.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you all see my screen here, the SCSA update, or not? I see Karen nodding, so awesome. We've been using Zoom quite a bit over the last little while, but I have never actually shared my screen on Zoom. So first time experience for me right now. So I have a little bit of an SCSA update here, a number of things that that we're touching on here for the August-September update. Again, COVID-19 being front and center. So, you know, a lot of people's minds still on that, and just mentioning there that we have a lot of resources available, and our website's really good. Like we've been updating a lot of information, especially now when things have changed so much during these past 6 months here. And we'll get into it a little bit more in the update here. Just there's been some transitioning to some of our training, our audits being different than what they traditionally were. So our website has a lot of good information on that. And we even have some videos on that as well, and some links to those videos on our website. So one of the things that it does talk about here is our instructor-led online training. So there has been a little bit of questions and possibly some confusion as to what that looks like. It's basically looking like what we're seeing here today when we have our RSC meeting. We're running it on the Zoom platform and it's interactive. We have a live instructor. They're leading it as they would the classroom training that we've done in the past. So it's not like it's a recording or anything like that. The students have the opportunity to interact, ask questions, and it's ran very similar to the classroom training. And just like this, like where Andrew's out of town and joining us, or the other gentleman from North Battleford, it gives us the opportunity to be able to have students attend from outside of our main areas without driving and having that as an issue. So it's been well received and it's working very well. A couple other things here. We have continued. We had a little bit of a transition or an adjustment when it came to us doing our audits. We started off with the C-Core audits and then we transitioned to doing core audits. So we're going full steam ahead with both our C-Core and core audits. It looks a little bit different because we're not doing the in-person. And there's actually been, again, some good feedback, positive feedback. It really seems to help companies with organizing their program documentation and getting everything in place ahead of time. So they're finding definitely some benefits to this online platform. And that's being done through Teams. So again, if you have any questions with that, we have a lot of the answers on our website. We have videos to explain how that's being done. And then you can always just contact us with advisory services. That's part of our role, is to try to help explain our programs and our services and help you and companies out with that sort of thing. So we also now have training records online. So this is a big improvement from what it used to be, where everything would have to be done physically. Now you can go online and get updates with your training records. So we have some information here on that. So that's been well received. We have toolbox talks like always online. We have our SCSA newsletter. And I just wanted to mention that on Tuesdays, we do a toolbox talk, fairly brief, just touching on a lot of different topics, relevant topics to workers, to our industry. That's a little bit of a briefer webinar, and that's on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, we have our webinar Wednesday, where it's more of an extended, it's typically around that hour long in length, and we have a lot of different topics. And we've been getting guest speakers in for those webinars, and we'll continue to have guest speakers in the future here. So I encourage you to take part in those if you're able to watch them. Nice thing about those two is that we record them and we have them available on Facebook Live as well. So there's a few different ways where you can view those. Any questions with anything when it comes to the RSC update that anyone has? Like I said, if you do have any questions about any of that, don't hesitate to contact us and let us know, and we'll help you out the best we can. There is a lot of changes in a very short amount of time. Everyone's had to make adjustments, and like I said, we have a lot on our website as far as information to help you navigate and get through that. But if you want to talk to someone in person, please give us a call. I can help you out the best I can, or point you in the direction of another advisor, or get the answers for you when it comes to that. One thing just to mention, if you are coming up shortly or in the near future for your audit, we do have a lot of audits being booked quite a bit in advance. We did have a number of audits that we had to get through. So the sooner you can let us know when you can do those audits, the better off we'll be as far as trying to plan those ahead of time. And then as far as our toolbox talk here, I won't go through this and read it. It is available online. It's on social distancing. I know I'm sure everyone has some level of COVID fatigue at this point, and I don't want to get too much into it, but I thought it was a relevant one considering where we're at right now. It was my son's first day of school today. You know, he had to go over what the rules and expectations were as far as social distancing and physical distancing. We have kids going back to school. We have our kids in sporting activities now. And the majority of businesses have opened up to some degree, even though things are different what they used to be. I think it's still really good to keep in mind the whole social distancing thing, and keep in mind that you know, this is still something that we need to work on, and we have to work together on it. Our toolbox talk here has a few different tips and things. Again, it's just reinforcement things that people have heard throughout these 6 months, but this was one of the first toolbox talks we did when this whole pandemic began, and it still has a lot of relevant information. And I think it was good just to kind of remind people and keep on top of that, because you know, I personally have you know, gone to and done some things through the summer here where you have people getting together and you have the best intentions at first, and it's like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and it's sometimes fairly easy to get into, like we talk about a lot when we're dealing with companies, that complacency, and then starting to kind of let your guard down a little bit and forget about things. And we don't want this creeping up on us again. And we have fairly decent numbers right now. So one of the strategies and techniques to keep numbers good is keeping mindful of the social and physical distancing. So that's all I have right now as far as our RSC update and the toolbox talk. Was there any questions that anyone else had?
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Rick. I know that anytime I go to the SCSA's website or make a telephone call, or especially the website, like you said, there's been lots and lots and lots of work done, and the information there is always really relevant and very topical and very helpful and very current. So much appreciated. I know that there's a lot that goes into what we see as the final product, but much appreciated, all of that. Everyone at the SCSA.
Thank you. Even I just wanted to mention too, if you are getting ready for an upcoming audit, please use our services, our advisor services, to help you prepare for those audits. There's a lot of times situations where companies have gone through the audit process a number of times and they're very comfortable with what the process was before. Now it's different, where you have to upload your documentation ahead of time. So even companies that have been through the process a number of times, it's beneficial for them to contact us and have us just help you navigate through those, through that situation, and make sure that you're well prepared. Yeah, but that's it from me, Barb. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rick.
And my screen is gone now?
Yes, yep,
Okay.
we're all
Excellent.
back.
Okay, right on.
We're all
Thank
back.
you.
Okay, so the last thing before we get to our speaker is we generally try to do, and it used to be an incident discussion or share an incident that had happened on site, but really I'd like to kind of pivot that a little bit and maybe ask if there is anyone on here who has, we'll call it a safety share. That's what's written in the agenda. I would consider that to be a positive safety moment that you saw or you experienced or that happened at your workplace that you would like to share with us, that might be one of those leading indicators instead of the lagging indicators that we typically talk about when we're talking about an incident. So I had two things happen. I'll share these two things quickly and then we'll pass it over. One of our crews, we work outside, of course, we're a commercial roofing company. So we're outside, rain or snow all the time. And in this tremendous heat that we've had this summer, one of our crews was very mindful of always having someone available to go and get additional water and additional ice, no matter what else was going on. They always had someone designated to make sure that they were well stocked with that on site, so that no one was dehydrated and so that they could take care of the heat that they were all experiencing. So that was a really positive thing to see. They took that upon themselves. And the other thing is, I had a toolbox meeting minutes submitted to me, and one of the topics that the crew chose was, how is this COVID stuff affecting everybody's, they called it affecting everybody's headspace, but they talked about how is all this stuff going on with COVID affecting mental health. And they had a discussion about that of their own accord. It wasn't a topic that I presented to them. So I was really pleased to hear that side of things and to hear them talking about that on site. So that's my two positive things. So does anyone have something they'd like to share along those lines from your sites or that you've heard? If you do, just pop in.
I know we work in kind of a different world where we're helping numerous companies, but recently I've had a lot of companies doing safety for the right reasons. So implementing safety programs, not for cost benefit, not for anything along those lines, but for the general will to help their employees. So I've felt like that's a really big positive coming out of some of these things, is like they woke up from the situation potentially saying, we've lied dormant with most other policies, and COVID brought us to the realm of doing documentation and promoting safety. So now their employees are more engaged in culture. So they're like, we need a safety program so that we can help our guys keep this culture and keep it up. So I've been really, really impressed with some of the companies that I've been working with.
That's great. Great. Thanks, Karen. Anybody else? If not, that's fine. We will, before we move on to our speaker, Scott, does anyone have any item that they would like to bring up for discussion that's arisen from our conversation this morning? I will, if not, then we'll just move on. I have a nice introduction that Rick sent me for our guest speaker today, who I'm really excited about hearing. I'm looking forward to this. So we have Scott Heil. Did I pronounce that correctly? Scott Heil from To Be Sure Substance Abuse Professionals. So Scott is a Canadian and internationally certified alcohol and drug counselor with over 20 years experience in residential inpatient, outpatient, hospital, and community addiction settings. Scott is a safety trainer who provides comprehensive substance abuse assessments and recommendations for safety-sensitive employers across Western Canada, where employees have had positive test results, have reported to work unfit for duty due to the effects of substances, or have self-disclosed related struggles. Scott is recognized as a substance abuse expert in Canada and as a qualified substance abuse professional through the U.S. Department of Transportation. So welcome, Scott, and I will turn the floor over to you.
Well, thanks, Barb, for that lovely introduction, and thanks for being invited to this forum and just the opportunity to listen in. Pretty cool. And thanks for the introductions from everybody as well at the start, because that definitely gives me an idea, you know, of who's in the room, the virtual room anyway. And sounds like we got a good mix of people tuning in here. So I'll just queue up my presentation here. Okay, so yeah, just to start off here, just to acknowledge some of the interesting and wild stuff going on in the world these days. So we are going to talk about some serious stuff here today, but we are going to also try to keep it light and, you know, recognizing this is people's lunch break, try to enjoy it as well. So just as far as the objectives today, just kind of really simply, we're going to really try to, if we can help people reduce this whatsoever in regards to uncertainties. Hopefully this doesn't offend anybody. You know, this, I can assure you this deer was organically fed and well cared of during the making this presentation. And we really want to increase this part of it for employers. So this is the important part, is that, you know, obviously that people go home safe and sound every day to their loved ones. You know, there are a lot of other benefits to progressing in these areas as well, you know, for employers who may want to have a more productive and healthy workplace. Not a bad idea, or, you know, to protect the bottom line as well. But this would be the main one, I think. So those are the objectives. So getting right into it here, this is taken right out of Alberta Energy. So this is, you know, when we talk about fitness for duty, it's not just in relation to substances. You know, physically, obviously, if there's any issues on the work site, that can lead to some bad things. You know, Barb, you had mentioned, you know, mental health and employers being more aware of that and the need to support people, especially with COVID. That's great news. You know, because if people aren't psychologically healthy, chances are it might increase the risk of bad things happening. You know, and physiological. So actually with fatigue, and people may know this, but the studies recently come out saying that if people are driving or operating equipment and are really fatigued, you know, they might as well be impaired. They're at risk. So some interesting stuff. You know, obviously communication on a work site, I would imagine, is quite important with signals and understanding. I guess the last thing I'll just mention for this slide, though, you know, lots of other things can make people not fit for duty, you know, certain medications, that kind of stuff. If people are going through divorce or, you know, separated from their kids, or financial ruin, you know, those kind of things. If employers weren't tuning into those things before, it might be a good idea to keep an eye on some of that stuff. People could really be struggling, and they might not be separating substances from the workplace as well. I would just say substance use can really affect all of these areas. So people may not come in under the influence, but they might be under the effects of substance use the next day on the work site. So just a general overview of fitness for duty. So I'm not sure if people are aware of this either, but according to the Canadian Centre on Substance Use and Addiction, what they tell us is that approximately 13% of Canadians would have a substance use disorder. Now, less than 1% of those folks ever get help. And when we think of some of the reasons why, you know, the stigma is obviously still there. Glad to hear that, you know, mental health has made a lot of progress lately, but I'm hoping this area does as well. Lots of shame and stigma still there. Lots of barriers for people to get help pretty much at every level. Lots of individual barriers. We know not everybody wants to get help or thinks they need to get help. Society doesn't always help that process. Service provider barriers, we'll talk about that a bit later too. They may not add much for the employer or for safety or for legal concerns. But also employers too, they're, how people deal with these things, there may be some barriers there as well. So hoping to get more people help in the long run. So not to be negative here, and maybe people are aware of this, but I love Saskatchewan, but we do have some interesting things going on here. I'm sure most people know about our really high impaired driving rate, that, it's gotten better lately, but it still leads all of Canada. Crime severity index per capita, we lead the nation with. And for people who are not familiar with that, that's largely due to, drugs and gangs, lots of crystal meth, influx, domestic violence, substance use ever involved in domestic violence incidents, often. Obviously rider pride, we know we lead the nation in that. But as Barb was alluding to, back in 2018, we did also lead the nation in our workplace fatality rates in Saskatchewan. There was 48 in 2018. And according to WCB, they say generally about 2,400 serious injuries each year on work sites. And I think the average over the last 20 years is about 37 fatalities on Saskatchewan work sites. So, it sounds like, I'm glad to hear that safety stats are better this year. That's great news. Is there still room for improvement? For sure. So I don't know if anyone's been to a Rush game or not. It's sure a lot of fun, especially when they score a goal. I don't know if people know what they do. That's generally the celebration, and that's great for a Rush game. But as far as safety on Saskatchewan work sites, this is kind of some of the culture we're trying to change. There's a lot of tough guys out there, or tough girls, and the culture could keep on changing in a positive way as well. So, the amount of people we see from work sites that blow 3 times the legal limit after they've been at work for 6 hours already is quite shocking. And when you ask folks as to, why did you go into work? The answers they give are a little alarming. It's like, well, I thought it was okay. My team needed me. We had a project with a deadline. So if this is something we can kind of chip away at, I think that would be going in the right direction in regards to safety. So sometimes when we have some interactions with companies, this is one of the first things we hear a lot of the time, unfortunately. So this is how I would illustrate that. But things are getting better. Things are trending in the right direction. The companies that we have interactions with that are, I would say, ahead of the curve and, improving in the right ways, they're really open about this stuff, and they acknowledge the fact that there are issues out there, and they're quite open about it, and talk about it regularly and how they can kind of nip things in the bud or get people help. And so hopefully that conversation keeps on going. And like Kieran had mentioned there, helping, doing safety for the right reasons. Hopefully we can keep building on that. So the employer, and I kind of, an example is, I don't know if people have rental properties or not, but kind of the landlord tenant arrangement. Ideally you'd think the landlord has all this power, but really in reality the landlord has all the responsibility. And as far as the employer and employees, it's pretty similar, because when stuff hits the fan, the employer is always liable, or more times than not. So employers do have extensive safety obligations, duty to accommodate. I'm sure people are aware of that. Substance use disorder is an actually recognized disability. It has been for 30 years, but not everyone is aware of that. They're to have alcohol and drug policies that encourage self-disclosures. Why is that important? Well, do you want your workforce, covering up and not bringing things to the forefront because they know someone's going to get fired? Measures to ensure employees are fit for duty, and remain fit for duty throughout the day, and to train supervisors in this area. Employers can also be fined and litigated against for negligence. And the max fine in Saskatchewan is over $2 million. Haven't heard of any that large, but I have heard a lot in $600,000, that kind of stuff regularly. And processes to manage these situations are definitely helpful. And we'll talk a bit about that as we go. So you had mentioned COVID-19 and kind of the state of the industry. Just some general information on COVID-19 and substance use. What we know is that alcohol and cannabis use in general are up. Mental health is up, as you had alluded to. So what we see is that people who may have been struggling with some of these things before are struggling more now. And maybe people that weren't really struggling in some of these areas may be now. So I do agree it is good for employers to lean in a bit more and be inquiring and curious and helping as well. Overdoses as well. You don't hear as much about this as COVID, but I think our overdose rates are up twice as much this year that they were this time last year. The year's not over, so there's some scary stuff going on COVID related. I would say COVID's having a direct effect on that as well. Okay, so on to the kind of the meat and potatoes. So recognizing the signs and symptoms, hopefully people can find some humor in this. In COVID age, you can't get too close to people. We want to keep our 2 meters. And some of this information people know already. Generally, this detailed kind of training is a half day or day long, so we kind of pared a lot back. But I would say that the biggest thing, even more so than knowing what to look for, is actually looking and having processes in place to monitor this stuff. Because if we're not looking, we're not going to find it. We're not going to see it. So alcohol, alcohol and nicotine kill more people each year. Tobacco kill more people each year by a long stretch than any other substances. But alcohol, it's very socially acceptable, as we all know. And conversely, it's really one of the most regularly overlooked substances that's going to be making its way onto work sites or people presenting to work under the effects of this substance. So in Canada, 2017, they said about 20% of people identified as heavy alcohol drinkers. And that's self-report, which usually is the least reliable. So I would suspect the numbers are even higher. But the big things for people to know, the smell, avoiding, that kind of stuff. I'm sure everyone is more in tune to that. It's just looking for it. The other part of alcohol that people don't think about is, we always think about people impaired at work, but really, I think 60% of the impaired driving cases in the province actually happen the next day, not during that time. So because alcohol can stay in people's system for a lot longer than they think. And conversely, even midday the next day, people can be really at a high risk of not functioning properly. I don't know if anyone's seen this before or not, but it's good to just not think about impairment, but also, people being hungover or under the effects of previous substance use affecting today's work. Cannabis, so this could be a whole day workshop on itself. So I will just basically say that is a very complex drug. It's not cut and dried. It's and one size doesn't fit all. can affect people in a lot different ways. When we think about, we think pot is pot, weed is weed, but when you think of all the different options out there today, there's, it's definitely one is not all. You got your dry bud, you got your joint, your spliff, your blunt. For people who may not know, your spliff is going to be cannabis and tobacco or nicotine kind of mixture. You might see that on workplaces for, give people a little bit of energy, get them going a bit. You're probably not going to see many blunts. People probably aren't getting off the basement couch after that. But, you got shatter, you got wax, you got oils, you got vapes, you got, THC, CBD, you got edibles now with the gummy bears. The thing with these is that the THC content is generally a lot higher than it used to be. So what happens, people are experimenting, they don't feel anything, and then next thing you know, they feel so sick they need to go to the ER, right? So one is not all when it comes to cannabis. Can't all be put under the same brush. Just really quickly, two of the trends with cannabis over the years is that the THC, the impairing substance, has gone up and up and up and continues to go up. And CBD, the part of it that is, non-impairing and may have some medicinal benefits potentially, is going down and down and down in general. Those are the trends. So it's not generally a good trend. Cannabis and policy, US DOT, which is kind of the gold standard for some of this policy, and industry leaders in Canada have generally adopted a zero tolerance approach. Some companies may decide not to now. We can talk about a little bit of that later. A couple of things to know: policy always trumps legalization. And I would say that if someone doesn't go zero tolerance approach, that's fine, but their reasonable suspicion policy and their processes become more vital and important. The flight simulator with NASA, the short story of that is they had all these pilots smoke cannabis at different hours post and get in the flight simulator. And the one takeaway from that is that none of them thought they were very impaired, but they were all more impaired than they thought at every time. So something to think about. Cocaine, obviously, might make its way onto some work sites, especially some of the transient work sites, or not. But this substance is going to really speed people up, can really impair your thinking and performance. Sometimes these folks might actually seem like really productive workers, which is a bit of an issue. But if you follow them, they're going to, run instead of walk. They're going to take more risks generally. They're not going to be as calculated and things like that. So something to keep in mind. Our buddy Al Pacino, though, I don't know if people have seen that movie Scarface, but not a good ending for him anyway. Amphetamine, so this is just kind of a more potent central nervous stimulant. Methamphetamine in Saskatchewan has really boomed in the last 10 years. And a lot of the issues facing a lot of different sectors is meth. It's not talked about lots, but it's on the rise. And here you're going to have folks that maybe haven't slept for a long period of time at work. They might be using it at work to get through, to keep having energy. But they're also going to get more aggressive and paranoid. They're going to be even more grandiose, kind of 10 foot tall and bulletproof. So those, we've had interaction with several different employers that have found this on their work sites in different industries. So it is out there. So the big thing though with stimulants is, some people might be using at work, obviously, to kind of keep going, but even if people are using on their off time or their weekends or shift work, It's even when they're not using, but the day or two after, they're going to be, all those positive effects that they had from using, it's going to be the total opposite. And, depressed, anxious, agitated. So just thinking of work sites, those don't seem like good things. They're going to be exhausted. Instead of being depressed, they might actually be suicidal, or they're going to have intense cravings for continuing to use a substance. So they might do anything to kind of keep it going. Opiates. So I'm just kind of going through these quick. So I hope that's okay. But opiates are going to be, your painkillers generally, your heroin, or your synthetic opiates like fentanyl, which basically just means made in a lab. But high abuse potential, over prescribing by physicians is common. They're working to get better at that, but still an issue. And here you're going to have people that kind of slowed speech and slurred speech and moving really slowly, not feeling any kind of pain, kind of detachment. So, and these things can happen very innocently, for anyone who maybe had any shoulder surgery or knee or hip surgery, it can happen very easily and very honestly and develop into an issue. So, the eyes can provide some clues too. So when you talk about reasonable suspicion, and we'll get into that a bit here, but the general thing is that if people are using, uppers, pupils are going to be larger. If people are using, painkillers or downers, they're going to be more pinprick. So it's not an exact science. I would say even more important is, are people's pupils changing when they go from light into dark or dark into light? And if the answer is no, then there's something going on there. But it's not the Bible. There are some things that, that could throw that off kilter. So reasonable suspicion. So obviously, what is reasonable suspicion if people are suspecting someone's not fit for duty? Well, according to the gold standard, it has to be objective observations. So of behavior, appearance, and odor, a set of circumstances that indicate someone is not unfit. So the key point there is a set of circumstances. So not, so if someone smells of alcohol, that's, pretty obvious. But if you can get, smell of alcohol, red eyes, stumbling about, fumbling about, sleeping in the construction truck, a set is always better. More than a hunch. And safety overcomes privacy in these areas. So requesting a test can be justified as part of determining fitness for duty for employers. Generally with these things, we have a little bit more, back and forth as well. So, people do have questions, I guess, after they can provide them, and I can answer them at a later time as well if people want to email questions. So what is the reasonable suspicion process? Well, basically, in a nutshell, there's 5 steps to it. Observing it, right? So you have to be looking to observe once you see it, confirming it. And these are really pared down. There's lots more information. But generally with another supervisor, if employers have that ability, sometimes HR wants to be there to confirm whatever works best for your company, documenting it, and so no hunches or judgments, just kind of matter of factly, the facts. Then discussion. So what I find is most employers, how do they have these conversations without getting too personal, right? So really, it's just it should really just be non-judgmental, matter of factly, another day at the office, right? Seems like you're not fit for duty, and these are the set of circumstances to rationalize my observation. Here's what we're going to do. And then the last would be testing. So I don't know how many people here, how many companies do use this or not, but I know not all do. But that would be the last part of that process. I use this slide sometimes to lighten the mood. Sometimes we get a cold reaction from it, but you know, I don't know. I have a 7-year-old boy at home, and I can sure tell you he's not accurate when he's going to the washroom. So I'm going to go a distance every time. So maximizing opportunities for prevention in regards to fit for duty. So, you know, so not being oblivious to these things or ignoring it or allowing it. So actually looking, if you look, you're going to find some companies over the years have put people on light duties. I don't know if people can relate to this. So I don't know how many employers these days want to pay people for doing less than a full day's work or full day's duties. They might send somebody home, which is better than doing nothing. I guess the concern would be, so what prevents that person from coming in unfit the next day or in the future, right? So dealing with in-house, some employers prefer to do this, and maybe they've been able to manage some of these scenarios on their own. People haven't lawyered up, or they haven't had to spend a lot in legal expenses or put a lot of time and energy, but there's a whole pile of issues that could go wrong when employers are just dealing with this in-house. Differences in, you know, power, those kind of things that, you know, employees, you know, do all employees want to be talking about this sensitive stuff to their employer or being 100% honest about it? You know, a pep talk kind of scare people into better behavior. Fear is generally one of the worst long-term behavior change strategies. You know, it might work really immediately, but not a good long-term one. Or employers just might want to get rid of that issue, right? It's common, you know, lay off or not call back, which I get, kind of creative way. But what I hope employers might do, and it sounds like maybe some of them are doing some of these things for the right reasons, is, you know, and I'm a small business owner myself, it's easy to make decisions based on what's best for my business, but also the industry I'm in and the bigger collective good. So if people can deal with these things a little bit more upfront and well, it not only helps the company, but it's going to help the whole industry in general, and it could really help bring some of these numbers down too and increase safety. So for people who are like, so okay, so we have someone who presented to work on fit for duty. How can we manage that? What can we do? So just briefly, I know we're getting short on time here, is, you know, I don't know if employers have tried to get some help from the public system, from mental health and addiction services, from the employee assistance programs, from physicians even. So anyway, just to kind of wrap it up here, is that when these situations do arise, though, there are opportunities, you know, for prevention. So there are some options to kind of nip it in the bud earlier, rather than having to let somebody go if it you know, hopefully things don't get that far. I just want to make sure people know what's out there for them. You know, when it comes to a tool belt for people in companies working in some of these areas, what we're hoping for is that, you know, they have kind of a full tool belt to work from in these areas. So there are resources out there for people should they want to manage these situations more or more often. And so having a good alcohol and drug policy is not a bad thing. Doing some drug testing, if people have the means to do that. Training their staff, you know, how to identify and look for fitness for duty, reasonable suspicion situations. You know, talking about it with their employees and their culture, having an open culture about this stuff. And having some processes in place that help them manage it as well. So, you know, I was alluding to the fact that some folks might have used some services publicly before, and they're good in some ways. But if employers are wanting any kind of framework for safety, for legal purposes to form decisions, there are options out there. You can get SAP assessments for those situations relatively cheaply. It can be done virtually or in person. If people are going to lie, deny, or minimize, they're just as likely to do that in person. But yeah, so hopefully employers can keep on building their toolbox for managing this important area. And I'm sure lots do fantastic in this area, so keep up the good work. Just to wrap it up quickly, so, what are the takeaways? So intervening is actually prevention, right? So when we don't intervene or we don't look or we're not preventing. And we can't prevent after fatality or an injury. Safety, as we know, isn't optional. 0 fatalities are acceptable. So you can get a framework to help. So whether the employers, whether they want to help individuals, or whether they want to get a framework to make sure that they're getting the right help they need, or whether they want to terminate or discipline somebody legally, you can get a framework out there. Yeah, because really at the end of the day, we want everyone to go home safe. So if people are looking for resources in this area, I guess I'll just finish, the Canadian Center for Substance Use and Addiction has some really good information on it. CAMH, the Canadian Addiction and Mental Health Center, has some good stuff. And even our website for people who are wanting employment related stuff, there's lots of good information on there. WorkSafe Saskatchewan has some good stuff on it as well. So there are areas people can access that information. So sorry about the technical issues. I hope people enjoyed it. Any questions for those who have stuck around?
Thanks, Scott. I don't think this is a question, but I really, right toward the end here, I really liked the kind of catchphrase, intervention is prevention. We're all about prevention, right? That's what safety professionals do. And yet there's been many decades long reticence to intervene with someone who has a drug or alcohol substance use issue because it feels so personal, right? Like you say, it should be just another day at the office. Here's an observation. Here's a thing. Here's the plan. Easy peasy, but it's not so easy peasy, right? So that's part of the, I like this, intervention is prevention. That helps us remember that that's what it's all about, right? It's all about staying safe and going home. Yeah. So I'm happy that we had this information, and I'm sure that there's lots of us who have some good policies and practices and protocols in place, and some areas where we're a little bit, like the deer in the headlights, maybe. A little on shakier ground, unsure of what to do next in various scenarios. I know that Rick and I had a quick conversation yesterday, and one of the things that he said was, well, what if you hire somebody and within the first couple weeks, you see or you think that there's maybe some substance use issues or a problem going on there, what do you do then? How can you proceed? What's the right thing to do? And what's the safe thing to do, right? So I think we all know the safe thing to do, but when you can have the right thing coincide with the safe thing, that's always a good mix, I think. Does anyone else have questions right now for Scott? If not, then I will say thank you to Scott Heil of To Be Sure for giving us a great presentation. What I really appreciated the information. And you may get some emails from us, Scott. Your email was shared, and now your website and such is up here as well, so we can contact you. Thank you for the resources. Thank you for putting this together and being in touch with Rick and myself and speaking to our group here.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Yep, sure. So I know that we're over time here and a couple of people have had to go already, so I don't want to keep us any longer. We need to say that the date of our next meeting is Thursday, November the 26th. And we've had a request from one of our members for sure, and it may be suitable for more of us, to move our meeting from a noon meeting back to, we used to have it at 7 o'clock when we had our breakfast in-person meetings. And that's to help accommodate those leaders of companies, of the small businesses and leaders who are busy with tendering and bid processes throughout the day and sometimes can't predict when that's going to be, and so therefore can't attend. So does anyone have any comment on that or objection to us trying a 7 o'clock meeting for the next one? And if not, then I think that we'll say that we're going to go ahead with that, and we'll get that information out a little bit early. Hopefully, we'll be able to work on our communication through the next couple of months and get that information out. And thank you all for coming. Is there anything else that anyone needs to bring up at this level, or that you want me to bring to the board? Are there any issues at the advisory committee level when I participate in that conference call? If you think of anything, you're welcome to email it to me or email it to Rick and he'll get it to me. And then I'll bring it forward at that meeting, which is later in September. Okay. So if no one has anything else, then I will adjourn us at 1:20. And thank you all for your participation.
Right on. Thanks, Barb. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.